Obviously, our focus with Swarm so far and Swarm research, the most innovative part was exactly what I talked about, the incentive system. This has been our focus because the actual technology for data distribution and retrieval, as I said, have been available, and research has been very, quite progressive in that field in the past decades. But what remained unsolved so far was incentivizing a set of nodes, or the network of nodes, to provide reliable service. There's two major components in reliability which we have to take care of. One concerns the healthy operation of the network, meaning to serve content in a low latency fashion. This is necessary to provide the web experience that users are used to, basically real-time interactive web applications. BitTorrent is not capable of doing that, so that was a very important goal for us. So this concerns basically compensating nodes for their bandwidth contribution. Now, bandwidth contribution is relatively easy to solve because once you get some data and you can directly pay for it, it's like when you buy a glass of lemonade and you pay for it. It's relatively easy exchange of goods. However, in the other pillar of this of the incentivization, which is what you do with content storage long term, so basically the reliability, that if you want to say use the cloud, like we're talking about the cloud, like the decentralized storage network, for long-term storage, say of like say you want to upload your birth certificate or your family photo album, you really want to make sure that content is there even after years of not using them or not retrieving. And bandwidth incentivization can incentivize popular content to be replicated and therefore securely stored, because nodes will be motivated to keep them because they can earn money by serving them to nodes that are interested. However, for unpopular content, the story is much more complex. First of all, you have to have this other type of incentive, which basically compensates nodes for the opportunities foregone to not store more popular content. So when the decision comes for a node to either delete your family album or serve something that's potentially more popular, then if you don't take care that they motivated enough to keep your content will be, say, garbage collected or deleted in the end. And that sort of incentive system is a little bit more complex than the bandwidth incentive. Why is that? It's because you're basically dealing with a promise. At the point of you uploading a family album and you wanting to make sure that that family album is preserved in the network for a longer period of time, you're basically buying a promise. And promises are a bit difficult because there's immediately a conflict when you settle the payment. If you settle the payment in advance, then your storer node that promised it might just disappear, and then you can just shout in the ether and where is my data? And if they disappear, and what can you do? Or if you defer payment until the promise is fulfilled, then of course the other party is taking the risk, and someone stores your data, but in the end they say, okay, I stored your data after a year and now you can pay, but you said it's not so important, I have a replica anyways, just delete it. And so they miss the payment. So there's this obvious problem, occurs with, of course, with a lot of other areas as well. Has very interesting solutions offered by the blockchain and smart contracts. The way it's working in Swarm is that when you pay for the long-term storage, you basically lock up a particular amount of money in a smart contract. I try to simplify the story a little bit, and that particular money is released in installments at particular times when your counterparty is providing a proof that they still have the data. Now, how do they prove that they still have the data? we don't have to go into technical details, but obviously there's much better ways to prove it than you downloading the whole stuff. This construct is called proof of custody or proof of storage. These are cryptographic constructs which allow you to have a compact proof proving to any third party that you store a blob of data without transferring the whole data and without revealing the actual contents. We worked quite a lot on such a scheme and how to optimize such a scheme, and that was quite a challenge. And we actually wrote 2 research papers on the solution. One is about this generic pattern of how we do the incentivization, and the second one is a little bit more formal about the actual proof of custody construct. The interesting properties of it is how you can efficiently prove that you store the data in even large collections. So basically, the use case is that you have to prove that the cloud, not necessarily one node, one store or node, but in the cloud altogether, has, say, the entire Wikipedia completely, flawlessly, like with its full integrity stored, without you having to store or like have a lot of data traffic. And we came up with a scheme which does exactly that. It's just passing like really little bits of data among a few nodes and can prove beyond arbitrary level of certainty that you want that the entire Wikipedia is there, and where your family album is there and preserved without you having to retrieve the whole stuff. Have you ever encountered a situation when your favorite service of yours was down? Now, in a proper decentralized network, when content is stored redundantly across many nodes, this is almost impossible, because there's a very little chance that all the nodes that redundantly store your data are down or compromised at the same time. So decentralized solutions were proposed already in like a few decades ago, and they proved extremely robust against various attack vectors, so to say. One attack vector is like censorship, obviously. So in general, decentralized storage solutions offer kind of zero downtime, completely fault-tolerant operation, and at the same time promise censorship resistance, and therefore they can compete with really high technology solutions of cloud service providers. And finally, they do it at the fraction of the cost that data cloud providers offer. And not less important is the aspect of privacy, because often the compromise that you have to take for relatively cheap or free cloud service provision is that your data goes through entities which turn that into profit. So old adage that if the product is free, then you're the product. And this is exactly what happens at the broken internet at the moment. That the way to solve scalability and all these kind of fault tolerance properties in Web 2, data providers offer you the free scalable services with their huge data centers. But at the same time, they can do this by making your product. They do user profiling. They have the say, like who accesses your content and what's accessed. So there's relatively strong censorship, so to say. And this might not be relevant to a lot of us in countries like with progressive governments, but it's a huge problem, for example, in China, where the Great Firewall really makes people's life very difficult and shields a lot of content and information from them. And decentralized solutions are extremely powerful countermeasures to these these restrictions that people suffer. A lot of today's businesses are intermediaries. They make money from market making. However, oftentimes their actual contribution is hardly more than what can be automated. Ethereum is based on the idea that service providers and customers can be directly linked, and they can have a direct transaction. And so therefore it allows for automation of all these intermediaries and services, and or at least makes it necessary that if you want to operate an intermediary service like a middleman, then you ultimately have to prove that you add value to the transaction, to the economy. So what am I talking about? Like, what's the examples? You can have taxi services without a taxi company. So Uber without the Uber company. You can have Airbnb without Airbnb. You can have takeaway services without the actual takeaway service aggregator company, because all the direct interactions become possible, and the automated, market making is possible on the blockchain. And most importantly, value transfer becomes possible without intermediary banks. Actually, the first really successful application of blockchain was actually decentralized money, currency. So Bitcoin was successful based on exactly this premise, that you can get around the need for for a centralized, trusted third party, and you can still do very secure direct value transfer trustlessly. Exactly, because it's based on the idea of decentralized consensus. It does away with the need for huge central powerful organizations that they often corruptible entities, because by their very nature, since they concentrate power by virtue of the fact that being the oracles, or being the ultimate keepers of the truth, they accrue power beyond what their remit would be, and therefore they are usually very easily corruptible. They're so to say single points of failure in the system. And the reason why decentralized consensus is so powerful is that it can do away with the centuries of practice that simply because of the logistics. So historically, a lot of coordination problems, or a lot of consensus problems had to be solved by having centralized oracles and third parties, because simply logistically it was not possible to disseminate information, to collect information. And that's why a lot of these entities accrued incredible power and concentrated power in the hands of individuals or certain organizations, and that led to a lot of abuse of power. Now, the potential that the decentralized consensus does away with the need for these, is extremely powerful. I truly believe that this is a very significant civilizational accomplishment, that this innovation makes it possible to decentralize oracles. You can have, say, land registries without having a land registry institution, which was always, like throughout history, very close to the royal courts, exactly because of the power that the holders of truth can have.